pediatric speech-language pathologist, and welcome to TeachMeToTalk.com's Therapy Tip of the Week. Today, I want to show you some really cute activities that I've found when I've been browsing Pinterest. And as you can see, we're making them with a variety of colorful ribbons. Now, that's going to make it really, really appealing to babies, toddlers, and even young preschoolers. These kinds of activities can be used to address a lot of different therapy goals, even across several different developmental domains. Now, if you're a mom, you may not have ever heard the term domain or developmental domain. That just means a different area of development. And again, I'll explain all that as we go so that you know what you're really working on when you're using these activities. Now, anytime I can make a couple of different versions of practically the same task, that's a winner for me. And so I want to teach you how to do that too. These kinds of tasks are especially beneficial for our little friends on our caseloads who struggle with more than language delays. So again, our friends who have fine motor issues, they're not quite as coordinated as we would want in their little motor skills, and also our little clients who have not met all of their cognitive milestones. And again, we know cognition is so important for learning how to talk. So I'll explain this again as we go. Let's start by giving you an overview of the goals. So if you're a speech pathologist, you're going to know what to write in your chart, what you're going to write on those progress notes that you're targeting when you use an activity like this. Obviously, we're going to be looking at a child's fine motor skills. And the primary skill here is a pincer grasp. And what is pincer grasp? That's when a child takes his index finger and his little thumb and he uses it to pinch. That's not how we say it. It's not pincer grasp, it's pincer. But he uses that to get it together and then pull the ribbon through. In another kind of activity, it might be for picking up a small object, say a pea if he's eating, or a little piece of dust if he's on the floor or whatever, but that pincer grasp. Now, if you're a speech pathologist, you may be thinking, Laura, what do I care about a pincer grasp? Let me tell you why you should care. That pincer grasp is a prerequisite for pointing. Now, we all know as speech pathologists, we use pointing when? Well, in our testing, don't we? We want children to point to tell us when we say, where's the whatever. We want a child to be able to point primarily to tell us that he understands what we've said when we're doing receptive testing or even receptive teaching. Beyond that, and more importantly, pointing is what? It's communicative. So when we have a child who's not pointing because of that fine motor piece, this is a great activity that we could use, again, as a prerequisite to move him through that continuum. Now, these kinds of activities are also great for our sensory kids. Now, what do I mean by a sensory kid? This would mean a kid who seeks out different kinds of sensory stimulation for one reason or another. We have lots of little guys on our caseload who really like tactile input. Now, again, if you're a mom, you may have never heard that word before. Tactile means touch. So they want things they can touch and feel. I think about these again as our touchy-feely kids. So these would be kids who like those little taggy blankets. Or maybe a child who strokes his mom's hair to go to sleep. These are kids who use that tactile piece, things they feel, to help their little bodies calm down and regulate. Another kind of kid that this activity is super for are our visual kids. Now, we can look at these kinds of kids in two ways. Kids who have visual strengths, meaning that our children who may have a diagnosis of autism or who will go on eventually to get that ASD diagnosis, those kinds of kids often have visual strengths in comparison with their language skills. So they like things they can see. They like to learn by looking at something, not necessarily hearing words to learn about it. So this is a great task for those kinds of kids too. It's also great for kids who are on the other end of that visual piece, meaning kids who have lower visual skills, kids who can't see for one reason or another. And we always need to be sure with those children in therapy that we're providing activities with lots of tactile experiences so they can feel, because again, that's how they learn. They're not able to rely on their vision to get new information. Children who are struggling with those cognitive milestones, those big 3 milestones, what are they? If you've taken any of my courses or read anything I've written, you probably already know what I'm about to say. the 3 big cognitive milestones that children absolutely, positively have to master before they learn how to communicate, either verbally with words or even to use signs or pictures, are object permanence, cause and effect, and simple problem solving. And we can certainly target those cognitive milestones with this kind of activity. Lastly, these things are great as a diversion. Do you know what I mean by diversion? That means when you want the child to pay attention to something else other than you so you can get something done. So as a therapist in a therapy session, this may be you need the child to do something while you talk to mom about something else. Or another way that I use a diversion in a therapy session is when I need an activity to help a child kind of come back to me or want to participate in a session. Say you've worked on something that's so hard, and he's just had it with you, and he wants to be done. He wants you to leave if you're doing home visits or if he's in your office or your school. He's ready to bolt out that door, and you need something to help him calm down and stay with you. And so for lots of our little guys, that'll be the purpose here. And again, it's entirely therapeutic, and I want you to look at it in that way. We'll also talk about how moms can use these as a diversion at home. Say she needs to cook dinner. She needs to make a phone call. She needs to go to the bathroom. These would be great activities that you could introduce to her and that she could continue to use even when you're not there. So now that I've told you why these activities are so great for toddlers, let's talk about how to make them. Now, all of the versions that I've made here, I used things that I already had. So I grabbed things out of the recycling closet that I have when I kind of hoard all these boxes and containers away because I think someday I'm going to need that for a therapy material. So I did that. I raided my daughter's ribbon stash, and so they were virtually free for me to make. And even if you don't have some of these things, I think if you're just a little bit creative, you can come up with ways to make them on your own. Now, the first version I made here, I used with a lacing board, and you can tell it's from a previous Valentine's Day activity. Now, lacing is typically when you take, say, a shoestring or a piece of some material or ribbon, and you feed it through, say you go in this hole and then back out and then in another hole and then back out. That's a great activity for fine motor control for toddlers and preschoolers, but some of our little friends aren't there yet. So again, this would be a prerequisite kind of task that you can introduce. So punch yourself some holes, or if you already have some lacing boards, that's already done for you. Just get yourself some ribbons or even those strings that you already used for that activity. Tie them so that there's a knot in each end. And again, the purpose here is for the child to pull the ribbon all the way through to either side. Now, if you don't have lacing boards, you can make your own. What do you think this is? This is from a frozen pizza. And all of us have that in our homes, right? Or even a pizza that you order. So wipe off the cheese and then use it for a therapy activity. You punch a hole in the edges. You can use a hole punch or whatever you have. And again, get yourself some ribbons and you can make some really cute versions of this. Now, sometimes you want to make your ribbons a little bit longer so that a child really has to pull. And again, that's the fine motor piece, and it's the cognitive piece with problem solving, because he's thinking, how long do I have to pull the ribbon before it gets stuck? And you'll give him lots of opportunities to practice with a version like this. Now, this task is also with the board. This version with the board is great for children who need to learn how to use both hands. Do you have children who really struggle with that? They're either using one side or the other. Usually they're kids who are not great at crossing midline too. And so our OT friends would say, we want to teach a child how to use his helper hand. So with a board like this, you're having the child hold it with one hand and then use his other hand to complete the task. And you may have to do a lot of physical assistance or hands-on help, as we like to say, to teach a child how to do that piece. This is kind of hard, though, for kids who might have difficulty stabilizing it. So let me show you some easier versions. I love this one. This is probably my favorite one that I made because it's cute. And don't you like materials that are cute? But again, don't get caught up in that. And sometimes we want to make everything so Pinterest perfect that we spend 2 or 3 hours making something that we could throw together in 10 or 15 minutes and it be just as therapeutic as if you had gone all Martha Stewart on it and worked on it all day. So this is a travel coffee cup, and what you're doing here is just punching holes. You can use your hole puncher or even something like one of those little craft knives or something sharp to make your holes, and make a hole on each side so that you can thread the ribbon through, and I'll just show you how the inside looks. I'm not sure you can see that on the camera, but you can see that the ribbon is through there. Now, some children will really be intrigued by looking at the ribbons, and so that's where the version with a clear jar might be a little bit more fun for those kinds of kids. And again, these are our friends who are really either struggling with cognition, like they don't really understand how toys work. They may not play with lots of different toys yet because, again, they're not cognitively or developmentally there. So this version will be great for them. I've left the top off this jar. That might drive some of you OCD, speech language pathologists, crazy. You can keep the top on there if you want it. But otherwise, the kid will be able to look through there and watch as he pulls and see that little ribbon move. And you're probably already thinking, man, some of my visual kids, some of my kids with autism will think this is really fun, and you're exactly right about that. Now, you will have to probably make some adaptations after you've made a version or two of these to make your holes bigger, to make it easier for your friends to pull the ribbon through. Don't make it too easy, though, because anytime we can present something that has a little bit of a challenge, we're working on problem solving. So again, it doesn't matter if your holes are perfect or if the kid has to tug a little bit to really work. Our OT friends would probably think that's great because then they've got the strength piece too. So take a look at that one. These are also great on-the-go versions because mom can just stick one of these in her diaper bag, or as she's driving the minivan, she can hand it back to the car seat and the kid can do this kind of thing on his own. Now, I love this version a lot, and this is probably the version that you want to use with your youngest babies or your most developmentally challenged children. Even our little friends who have significant motor issues that maybe aren't even walking yet, but they still have pretty good function with their hands, or you're working on that, this would be a great version. So just take yourself a cardboard box. You're going to want to punch holes in every side. And here, don't just put the ribbon in one end and then have the child pull it through because then you have to reset the darn thing every single time. So you're sort of doing what you did with the travel cup and the mayonnaise container. You are putting it through, like the pink one here goes from the top to the side. Now, I love this one because if our kids, again, are really working on that cognitive piece, and the kids who've already mastered that are going to notice, hey, when I pull this ribbon, that one moves too. And that's going to be really interesting and keep their attention as you have them play with this. Now, remember, you're going to have to show a mom how to do this. She's not going to really probably see any therapeutic purpose in this activity when you bring it out. So you need to explain all of the things that we've talked about, that you're working on fine motor, you're working on cognition, you're using it for tactile input. You know, this is a vision activity. Whatever you're doing, be sure that you're talking to mom about all the different goals that you're working on when you're addressing it. To add the language piece, I like to think about this again as an activity where I'm layering language. We're working on these other things, but I'm also adding some words there to make it exciting and make that kid want to listen to me and include me in this activity too, especially, you know, again, if we're not using it as a diversion, if I'm there too. So as I'm pulling, I'm saying things like, wow, or something like, you know, if you have a really long one, I don't know if you can see it. Let's just use the pink one again. You know, we might say something like, wee, boop, and use our exclamatory words. And again, pull a kid into this activity, help him stay engaged with us, with our affect and with our voices. Now, you may have to do some fine motor, hand over hand assistance to get this going, and that's okay too. All right, I think I've already told you how to use this as a diversionary activity in therapy, and be sure you're telling Mom, again, why you're doing it. You might say, I'm going to let him do this while I talk to you, but here are all the things that he's learning on his own while he's using this kind of activity. Now, if you are working in a home program that discourages you from taking in your toy bag, don't make me go there today, but this is a great activity that you can show moms how to make at home. And even if they don't have pretty ribbon, perhaps you could give that to them. I find all kinds of cheap things that say Dollar Tree, and I was in there this week looking at some Easter things, and they even had some Easter-themed ribbon that you can pick up and take to a home visit like this and teach Mom how to make one of these for herself. So this is a cute, inexpensive activity. It targets lots and lots and lots of goals for toddlers, again, especially for our little friends who have significant challenges beyond that speech and language piece. So dig around your house, gather up your supplies so you can make some of these on your own. If you liked these ideas, I hope that you'll check out my other Therapy Tip of the Week videos, as well as TeachMeToTalk.com's entire product line. I'm Laura Mize, pediatric speech-language pathologist, and that's all for today. Thank you for watching TeachMeToTalk.com's Therapy Tip of the Week.